Why, hello, Jill. Hi, guys. Welcome back to Nailed It. How are we? I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone's had a cracking weekend. This has been another one for the books, another one worth shouting about. We've had a pasta night. I hosted 7 of my friends. No, 6. I'm the 7th. And I cooked. I made marry me chicken pasta. It was pretty good, if I do say so myself. However, washing up after cooking for 7 people was not very good. Not very good at all. When I cook, my kitchen looks like Hiroshima has ripped through it, to be quite honest. It was not a pretty sight. And I'm quite fortunate that normally my fellow goes round after me cleaning up, you know, while I'm being a messy cow, making things taste nice. He's behind me like Kim Woodburn in Marigolds. So, yeah, I didn't have that on my side. To be fair to the girls, they did offer to help. And I did. They did bits and I politely declined. I was like, no, let's go and enjoy ourselves. I'll worry about that later. Come 2 a.m. when I had to get up for a dance competition at morning, I'm stood there scrubbing away with Dettol and Fabulosa. Should have took the help. That's my advice for this week, guys. Take the help when offered. Sunday, yeah, speaking of dance, it has been a phenomenal weekend for dance all round. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, one of my best friends is in the Strictly Come Dancing final. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. She has smashed it, and I'm so bloody proud. So that happened. Not that we doubted it for a second, but that's happened. And then, excuse me, we went and only won our first dance competition of the season. And it was bloody brilliant. What a day. Honestly, I obviously talked about it in episode 3. If you want to have a look. Hashtag dancing queen. Hashtag nailed it. No, it was the best feeling ever. It was our first comp as a new team. The new girls that we've got are just the phenomenal. It feels like they've been here forever. It was just brilliant. The energy was great. We were the last routine of the day as well. So we arrived at dinner time and we danced at 8 p.m. So like, we felt every feeling. It was like excitement, tiredness, hunger, and like everyone naturally buys stuff like sweets and crisps to snack on. You get to like tea time and you're like, I need a nap. But it was really good. It was the first competition I managed to drag my partner to as well to come and watch. So he was 25 quid down and we was a supporter up on the fence. 2 actually. What a win for us. And yeah, it was so good. Getting the feedback from the judges was amazing. Our routine this year is, I said it a couple of weeks ago, I'll say it again, it's so bloody good. Obviously, I can't show you any sneak peeks and I have no intention of doing. If you want to see it, come to a comp. But no, it has been amazing. Yeah, that was what my weekend looked like, guys. I hope you all had a great one. And for today's episode, well, this topic is one of the first ones I noted down. You'll see a theme in probably my first, 10 episodes. These are the first ones that came to mind when I started, getting the feeling and the notions of wanting to do a podcast. And yeah, so here we are. Welcome to Grief, Death and Taxes. The big black hole. In my opinion, if 3 things are certain in life, and no, one of them is not me always being late, although it probably should be, it's those. This episode's probably going to be a long one. It was quite funny actually. After last week's episode, my brother texted me and said, fuck me, you can talk. And you know what, guys? Yes, I can. Kind of why I'm doing a podcast. I got a lot to say. But this is a topic. This is one of the closest topics to my heart. As I've said to you before, most of the things I talk about are things that I've experienced myself, things that I've gone through. This is one of them that has literally shaped my entire life and future, unfortunately. So yeah, this is going to be one of those episodes. I would get a brew or your drink of choice, maybe even a snack, maybe a box of tissues. I've actually not grabbed any tissues. I think I'll be right, to be fair. But yeah, pull up a pew and let's have it. Growing up, I had, like a lot of people, I had a couple of relatives die. I lost a grandparent, an uncle. They were the worst things that had happened to me at the time. So obviously they were my exposures to grief. And I was about, I think I was like 13, 14 in that space. I also I lost my Shih Tzu when I was in primary school. That were a bad day. Lost my family dog when I was 60. Like my OG, long-standing golden retriever, Max. That killed me. Stopped me dead in my tracks. Literally. Sorry. But yeah, that was me going through the mill at that time of my life. But absolutely nothing could have prepared me or has ever compared to what I felt when I lost my dad and what I went through at that time. The briefest of the briefs before we do get stuck in. I lost my dad when I was 20. It was about 6-7 weeks before my 21st birthday. He got diagnosed with cancer, and in a short space of time, he was diagnosed, treated, he rang the bell, and then he was sadly diagnosed as terminal and he passed away. I've somehow fudged my way through life in general, but very much more so since that. Since then, life has been different to anything I could have pictured or mapped it out to be. When I get asked about it by those who dare, because, God forbid we talk about grief and we ask these awkward, uncomfortable questions, but, I'm lucky. I've got people around me who know me and they understand me and they kind of get the gist of me and what I stand for quite quickly. Normally when I meet people, I've realised in myself that I tend to bring up my dad. I wouldn't say it's like my personality trait. By the way, my dad's dead. What about yours? I just mean there's almost always a reason to bring him up in a positive way. And I think people then kind of get the gist that I'm happy to talk about it. Like, it's no secret that he's not part of my life anymore. So I know people dance around that a little bit. And when I do talk about it, I get the words often, strong, brave, honest, real, etc. And this is to give you like the truth, the black and white, as always. We don't sugarcoat here on Nailed It. You may listen to this today and you may still refer to me as those things. You may listen today and have a better understanding of what it feels like to experience it, the different places your mind takes you to and from the day it happens to, years in advance, where on a random Tuesday you sat at the top of your stairs in your brand new house crying your eyes out because you just can't, you literally can't fathom the reason why you've got such a big hole in your life and in your heart. So yeah, it may help you. It may just give you a wee nosy into my trauma, as most of the poddy oddy does. It might help you if you're listening and someone you know has suffered a loss and you don't know how to approach it. Maybe this could help you with your communication. Who knows? But yeah, anyway, before I clock out emotionally, let's get into it. So I've decided to break this episode down into sort of giving you an idea of my dad and my family unit so you can understand why this is such a big deal. Obviously, losses should be a big deal, but some people have shitty parents. Some people don't have nice families. I was very lucky that I did. So I'm going to give you that. I'm going to talk to you about his illness and his death, sort of the funeral, the aftermath, as I call it, the feelings I felt, maybe the feelings that a lot of people have experienced through grief, and where we are today. I'm going to end it on a light note, and I've had the most feedback on this episode. Part of that, I'm guessing, is a natural progression of the podcast, which I'm nearly at 300 followers, by the way. Thank you so much. But I also think it's a topic, like some of the messages I've received have been like, even people who I've been close friends with for years have said, I've never actually known how to approach this with you, but I've always been interested. And I think people feel uncomfortable saying like they're interested because it's like, why are you interested in grief? But it is interesting. It's interesting to know how people deal with different things and the complexities and the depths of the relationships and why they feel the way they do and why they conduct themselves the way they do. So, yeah. I'm going to give you the whole scope. So, let's take you right back so you get a good picture of me dad. him, my ma, my family unit, etc. So the year is 1985, I believe. My dad's a drummer in a band. My dad was always in the music scene. And he's playing in a social club in Coppell. He was playing in Coppell Legion. So my nan and granddad ran Coppell Legion. My dad were drumming on stage in the band, and my mum were pulling pints behind the bar. And there was a bit of a cheeky flirt going on. And my dad obviously decided it would be appropriate to stalk my mum home, I believe, in the Ford Mondeo. And yeah, asked her to go out with him. Fast forward 2 years, they're married in 87, and they're having their first baby in 89, who's my eldest brother. In this time as well, my mum and dad, they built houses together. So they actually built houses that people I know living in Horwich. They did that for like quite a long period of time. They were both, out grafting, loving life, went on a few holidays to Skiathos and other Greek islands. We did used to call my dad Louis the Greek because he had the most beautiful olive complexion. I'd love to say this is real, but unless it's Mexico, this is Molly May. However, I do tan very, very well. But it was actually at a point in my life where my dad picked me up from primary school once. And obviously when you're in primary school, kids are mean, kids are menaces. They have no chill. And someone asked me if I was adopted because I was the colour of my Stanley dupe. By the way, Matalan, £12. Don't sleep on it. Hashtag nailed it for 10% off. Joking. Imagine. Maybe one day. Anyway, I was that colour and my dad traps in like this because he's worked outside all his life and he just, the sun just loved him. But yeah, we called him Louis the Greek. I am digressing. Someone thought I was adopted. They didn't think he was my real dad because we were so different. He was, that's my daddy. Be sure. Anyway, 2 years later, they had my brother, Scott. And then there's a big old gap. There's a big old pause in time until the gorgeous and best accident happened in 1989. It's me. Hi. Yeah. My mum and dad both swear that I wasn't an accident, but the 7-year age gap did raise the eyebrow. To be fair, my mum did say she always wanted a girl. She said. And then she got one and probably regretted it because boys are easier. Anyone else heard that? Bog off, honestly. Anyway, our girls hard work, fucking right we are. Unless you're me, because perfect, obviously. Anyway, I am really bloody blessed. My family, and this is not trying to rub it in anyone's face, but my family genuinely really never had anything bad happen to them. As I've said in previous episodes, my mum and dad taught me everything I know about morals, hard work, manners, communication, They displayed really healthy properties in our household that I now know as I got older have made me who I am and have impacted me in a really positive way. And I'm just so grateful for that because I know not everyone's got that opportunity. They always used to get, your kids are really lovely, your kids are really well-mannered, and, it's just a massive credit to them and everything that they did. They've always motivated us to do things. They always encouraged me in my career, in dance, in every aspect of my life. They always worked so hard to provide for us and always give, my friends somewhere to come. My mum spent quite a portion of her childhood growing up in Kerr, and she literally said, I've always wanted a family and I've always wanted to give them somewhere that they can feel comfortable with and they can bring people to, because she never had that. And that's exactly what she did. They always strive to be able to offer me and my brothers the best. And, we didn't do fancy holidays. We weren't a Disney family or a Greece family in the height of summer holidays when it cost 10 grand. We didn't have that kind of money. But what we had going on under our roof, money genuinely could not match it, I was one of my only friends who actually had parents who were still together in a full family unit, which is fuck all to do with anything. But like I said, I look back and I realise how much of a positive impact that's had on me. All my friends, like my house was one of the houses to go to, and all my friends recognised that and they looked at my parents like they were their own, and it was just a real safe space. And yeah, it really just benefited me in my core years of my childhood. Now, according to my mum and even my dad, when I was a baby, I was apparently a mummy's girl. But growing up, all I remember genuinely is being glued to my dad. I went everywhere with him, So I went to we had a recording studio in our house where he would record New York. So there's a lot going on today. Yeah, he would record. He would have people in recording with him. His band would record there. If it was a late night Tesco trip or, a tip run on a Sunday, I was the first one sat in the van ready to go. I was just besotted with my dad. And he called me his princess to everyone. That is not a joke. That is the real deal. It has since reflected in my relationship, and even my father-in-law calls me that. Not even in a cringy way. If you ask cringing, sling it, log off, do one, because that's exactly what I was to my dad. I was his princess. I was his absolute world. He took every picture of me. He was like, look, $1 million, babe. Stand there looking like shit. I'd trap out like this in a sweatshirt and joggers, and he'd be like, oh, George, Facebook, look at my gorgeous girl. That was just me dad. And he was like that about all of us. None of us wanted for anything emotionally when it came to our parents and what they give us. And like I said, we're really lucky for that. All my family and friends and their friends knew how close we were. And as I got older, my brothers left home, me, my mum and dad literally became the Three Musketeers. Side note, when I was watching The Holiday last weekend, and I told you I was emotional and did my tree, when that line came up, albeit her dad left, I'm talking about, what's her name? Cameron Diaz, when she's like, oh, I've not cried since I was 15. Well, I cry all the time, queen. But when she said about them being the Three Musketeers, boom, floodgates opened. I have watched The Holiday over 100 times. It is one of my favourite films of all time. The Holiday is a film I'll watch in June. And recently, that line has started killing me. And now I think I know why. Lucky me. Anyway, there weren't a Sunday that I weren't in pub with my mum and dad, or just out with them, enjoying the company, having tea, going for a walk, anything. And I know that everyone probably says this and experiences it as they get older, but you genuinely do appreciate your parents more as individual people rather than just your parents or your mum and dad. I just loved watching our relationship shift in that sense. My family, we were just tight as out. You literally couldn't get a gnat's arse between the five of us, or, as partners came involved and everything. My parents have really big morals and family values, and they've instilled that into us as well, which has set us all in good stead for our lives and sort of what we want for our futures. And my dad was leader at pack, he literally was like king shit. It was dad versus the world. If something went Pete Tong, you rang dad. He had so many friends and so many people in life that he made an impact on as well. He was so big on family, massive. He made such a huge point of it all the time. We always hosted Christmas at my mum and dad's, and everyone would come to us. He would host random family do's 2 or 3 times a year for no reason. Probably drove my mum up the wall, because obviously my dad enjoyed it and got pissed, and my mum did all cooking and cleaning, but we move. And he was very keen to keep people together and keep the family bond strong, even if it was just touching base once or twice a year, because even I've noticed since him not being here, that has happened less and less. And I realise how much my dad has been the epicentre of my little family, but also the wider family. At family do's on a bigger scale with uncles and aunties and things like that, he was the one going round to every table. Are you all right, Auntie Eileen? How's it going, Cousin Anne-Marie? Do you know what I mean? He did that. That was his role. He kept all those relationships going. So yeah, and that's reflected in me as well. I love hosting. I love displaying affection. I love getting people together. I think this is why I make such a big deal out of my birthday. Apart from the fact, it's all about me. Remind me of Love Actually. They're all of me. I look quite pretty. No, I really like getting the people I love together, especially my friends. Obviously, love my fam, love to the fam. But I just think it's important to show your family and your friends how much you love them. And I feel like sometimes your friends turn up for you more than your family. And I don't mean my immediate family, I mean the wider family. Do you know what I mean? If I put something in the group chat, all the girls are replying. If I invite all my aunties from the other side up northwest, they probably won't all trap up. So you get the gist. So anyway, you get the picture of me dad. King of everything he touched. He literally didn't have a single enemy. Not even his ex-wife. Bloody hell, that were a story and a half. I'll keep it brief. But I didn't know this. I remember my mum and dad, they took me to Charlie car boot, right? One of my favourite Sunday memories with my mum and dad, going to a car boot. anywhere. There was one little sketchy one in Bolton just off Dean Road. That were always a corker. Anyway, Charlie Car Boot used to have a big bouncy slide, hot dog van. Oh, it were bloody good. And I remember I was walking round and my dad stopped and chatted to this woman. And he was like, anyway, like, they're having crack. And I was like, she must know us. And she's saying hi to me. And I was like, I'm 10 years old. Fuck off. I don't know who you are. You're not my auntie. Anyway, no idea. Walking off, I'm like, who was that, Dad? My mum starts laughing. Mum goes, it's your dad's old sister-in-law. I went, what do you mean, old sister-in-law? And he went, it's your dad's ex-wife's sister. I went, sorry? I swear to God, I nearly pivoted round and flipped a fucking fold-up table full of Barbie dolls and tat. I was livid. I was like, you had a life before us? Before me? I did speak a word in back, which is unheard of for me. Sat there all the way home. Pissed off, no replies. Anyway, I got over that. Put it this way, it can't have been that bad because all ex-wife's family came to the funeral. So, you know, that's the type of impact my dad on people. He was funny, he was kind, he was life and soul of every room he was in. I ain't just saying that because he was my dad. Anyone who knew him, feel free to shout out in the comments at some point when this goes live. If, you knew exactly who Lou Nayled was after you'd met him, it was just a treat. Side note, he would be absolutely live, laugh, loving this podcast. I think about all the things I do. There's probably a positive part before I get into something real dark. But he would be absolutely British gassed about this right now. I know it for fact. He'd probably be stood behind me, blowing like his e-cig smoke over for some effects, or encouraging me to record in his studio, which would have been great, ideally. But yeah, he'd be all over this. So, I bring it forward to 2019, where the trauma begins. So, you get it. Dad's king, mum's queen, happy family, we're his royal subjects. Everyone's happy. My brother was getting married in 2019. It was the event of the year, the height of the season. My mum and dad wanted to lose some timber. We had my brother's wedding, everyone wanted to be in top shape. They joined Slimming World. It was very wholesome. And my dad got slimmer of the week. 3 weeks on the bounce. He was killing it. Kept coming on with a bag of goodies like, look what I got. I was like, you will be slimmer at week if you carry on with that. Now, albeit, he had it to lose. We're a short family and we're a stocky family, all right? It's just how it is. And my dad were a capital D. Woo. And yeah, he had cuddle room. And we love that. So yeah, and my dad, he was a loud snorer. If my dad were asleep, the whole street knew about it. The reason I'm saying that is because of his snoring is how we ended up discovering that my dad wasn't well. When he were asleep and he was snoring, now bear in mind in our old house, it was 3 stories and I had the loft room. And they were below me. And let me tell you, you could hear it coming through floorboards. I thought it were only heat that rose, but my God. We started noticing it was getting louder. It was getting laboured, quite aggressive almost at points. To the point where my mum and dad were sleeping separate, which never happened. Not even after a row. Do you know what I mean? And so we went to doctors. Went to doctors one Saturday morning in February, and straight away the doctor said, don't like the look of that. Referred him ASAP, and by the Tuesday, my dad was in hospital, and we sadly received the diagnosis that he had stage 4 throat cancer. The doctors said to us, it's not nice. It's not going to be nice, but it's treatable. And albeit we're going to batter you with treatment, Lou, if you want it. We're going to see to it that you're going to get better and that you're going to be right in time. So the day we found out, I remember one of my brothers lived with us, the other one didn't, and they came round, all the partners with them. We all just kind of gathered in the living room and cried, basically. And my dad's favourite band was Queen. And the October before for his birthday, we'd all been to watch, me and the boys took him to watch Bohemian Rhapsody at cinema. Now, it was dead funny, my dad hated getting ripped off, right? First one to get his wallet out, but also hated getting ripped off. So the cinema was my dad's idea of hell. I remember him taking me to watch Angus Songs and Perfect Snogging when it came out. And I was like, can I get some pick and mix? And he was like, yeah, go on then. Came back, I put like 4 of them big dolphins in it, and it was 13 quid. He were like, I'm sorry, love. You got to do something about that. So I ate one instead. But yeah, and I remember us taking him, and he had like the absolute best time. So that day when we found out, we all put Bohemian Rhapsody on. It had just come out on Sky, and we all put it on and just sat watching it on couch. And I remember I brought my duvet downstairs, and I was sat between my dad and my fella, and I was holding both their hands, and I was just like, I don't like this. It definitely felt like the rug had been pulled from under the nailers, like very, very quickly. You know, when you think about, I don't know about anyone else, and this is quite off topic, but you sometimes think about like the pitch perfect moments of your life, and you know, you say like, you don't know the good times, so you're not in them anymore. And mine was the Christmas before this happened. It was my first Christmas with my current partner. We just introduced his parents and my parents to each other, and everyone was vibing, went on loads of like little sessions together. All my friends were in a good place. Like, my brothers were both really happy. We were all vibing. And I remember us all being out in a bar in my boyfriend's village with his parents and my dad. And obviously my dad were a singer, and my fella's dad didn't know. So we got up to do a song, and I could see the embarrassment ready to wash over his face. And then my dad started singing, and he brought the house down. And everyone was dancing and buzzing and dead happy and surprised. And when I think back to like the moments in my life that are like, that's when everything was perfect. That's like, if you could take the picture and freeze the time there, that would be that one. But anyway, I told you it weren't going to be easy. Yeah, within a couple of days of finding out, we got a full treatment plan, and it was going to undergo chemo and radio for a period of time. He would spend a full 5 days to a week at a time at Christie's going through chemo, and then after that he went for daily radio sessions. He was driving to Christie's every single day on the other side of Manchester. He was treated from March to June. He had 12 sessions of chemo, I think, and 36 rounds of radio. So quite a lot. I think it might even be more on the chemo. And they were monitoring the cancer, and it was shrinking, and albeit he was getting battered, you know, the weight was dropping off him, he lost his hair. Now, luckily, my dad absolutely rocked being bald. But it appeared he wasn't dying, you know, he was still with us, he was still with it. He was just getting smaller. But he was coping really well with it, and he was reacting well to it. The plan was that after the treatment, he'd have a break, be operated on, remove whatever was left, and we'd all crack on, be happy families, and be in Vegas for his 60th. That was the master plan. So come June, my dad went for his final radio session, and as a family, we all went to watch him ring the bell. And that for us was the end, or the beginning of the end. You know, it felt like we'd got over the really big part of the hill, and we were on, like, you know, the home stretch. And I don't know if it's a misunderstanding or misjudgment of treatment and cancer, but if you see a patient ringing the bell and ending the treatment, albeit it's an unpredictable illness, you don't expect to be burying them a couple of months later based on what the doctors have told you. And that would be my first one. If anyone's listening that's a medical professional, ring the bell if you're cancer free, not at the end of the treatment. Don't confuse the kids. But anyway, I digress. Dad rang the bell. We actually did keep it really quiet, to be fair, between the family. We just didn't really tell a lot of people. Like, it didn't go on social media until he rang the bell. We just didn't do it. We didn't, you know, when I was 13, I'd probably been like, OMG, Dad's dying, post, like for a You're the One. Not as you get older. You grow out of that. But yeah, my mum and dad also were trying to move house at this point because they wanted to be mortgage free, which they did become, and that was really nice. But we ended up moving house the same week that my dad was finishing his treatment and ringing the bell. So it was chaos all around. It felt like we was really closing the door on so many chapters of our lives and opening new, happier ones, which I didn't think were possible. But yeah. And it was just another layer of chaos. But, you know, he finished his treatment. Everyone kind of relaxed, if you will. My dad's hair grew back. Like, seeing my dad's eyebrows come back really freaked me out. I don't know why. We started going on holidays. You know, it felt like you could leave his side for longer than just to go to bed. Like, you felt like he was on the right path. It seemed like everything was moving in the right place. And after the 6 weeks, come the beginning of August, we got the news that my dad's cancer had grown back quite drastically, and it was unable to be we couldn't operate on it, and that meant that my dad wasn't going to be treated any further. We was offered immunotherapy, which is basically for like comfort reasons, but it basically does fuck all that I know of. I'm not well versed on that, so if there's any professions, jump in the comments and correct me, I don't mind. But we really did get messed around a lot by Christie's, and I will share with you a story where I was horrible. I'm not gonna lie. Would I change anything that I said? No. If there's one thing you don't fuck with, it is the people that I love, because I will absolutely kill you. I've no hesitation. But that day that I found out that was what was going to happen, I remember I was in work, and my mum works at the same place as me, and to come home from Christie's you had to drive past my work, and I don't think she thought I'd be fit to drive home, because I knew where they were. I was ringing her constantly thinking we were getting a date for an operation. Everyone at work knew what was. I remember turning to my boss and he was like, "How's your dad?" I was like, "He's dead good actually, funny you say that." I was like, "We're finding out today what date his operation is to remove the rest of it." And he was like, "Oh, belting on there." Chugging away at work, unbeknownst to me, mum and dad are having the life ripped apart just about 4 miles down the road. But yeah, and my mum had to come and get me from work and break the news to me, and I'll be real, it was just a complete blur. I don't even remember driving home, but I remember ringing my fella when I was in the car, and I was just shouting his name. I was like, I couldn't comprehend anything. I remember when I got home, to my dad, I showed nothing, but I went in the kitchen and I was physically screaming out loud. I was punching the floor. The floor was hard tiles, and I'm no Rocky Balboa. I don't know what I thought I was doing. I don't know what point I was trying to prove, but I just had so much anger and emotion inside of me that I didn't know how to convey it or get it out of my body. But I could feel my body shutting down, which I now know was just a panic attack. I said just a panic attack, like it's going pop into the shop for some milk. But that's what I was enduring, but I didn't realise it at the time. The last time I'd had a panic attack was at JLS a few years before, when they were breaking up, and I was dead emotional. But that's very, very different kind of emotion to what I was going through here. And yeah, he was the only person that I didn't cry or break to. I'm not just saying that. I physically forced myself to not show it to him, and I wanted to put on the most positive display, because my dad was a really emotional guy. The man would get emotional on a random Wednesday night just talking to me and the lads and telling us how proud of us he was. I've actually got a video of it somewhere that I'm going to post in the photo dump. And that was without a beer in his system. You should have seen him after a bev. Jesus, he'd be like, any pub we walked into with karaoke, like, give me the mic. I just want to get up and say how much I love my kids and my wife. Like, Dad, either sing The Love I Lost or sit down. Like that was just my dad. But anyway, it was really hard and emotional and horrible. My dad made what some would probably call the mistake. You never know until you're in it, but he wanted to know how long he had. And they'd said between 4 months and 2 years, which is nice and vague. Cheers, Christies. Naturally then, my dad went through every day of his life thinking he was going to die if he fell asleep, which was, again, really hard to witness. You're watching someone physically, deteriorate, but you're watching them emotionally and mentally break down, and you don't envision. Everyone wants to die in the sleep, happy, comfortable, all them things. You don't physically imagine yourself watching someone die in front of your eyes every day, and that's the difference. We'll break it up here with the story of me being a nasty cow at Christie's. I'll set the scene, shall I? We went to an appointment. Bearing in mind at this point, my dad's terminal, my life's absolutely shattered, We were being offered treatment to make my dad feel comfortable. And I remember going, and we were getting dragged to Christie's every other day. And it's not like it were down the road. It's not like I was nipping to Bamber Bridge, Tesco or Sainsbury's. We were going to the other side of Manchester with a very unwell person, taking lots of time off work, which I didn't give a shit about that part. It was more the fact of, are you really going to drag this man who's freezing his bollocks off with a tube in his nose, being fed to the other side of Manchester every day for you not to see him and sort him out or do something to make him feel better. All I wanted was for the time that my dad had was for him to feel comfortable and at ease, and they provided none of that to us, and that's what fucked me off. This particular moment, went into this doctor's room, and there was a doctor there and a junior doctor, and I tell you what, if that junior doctor ever finds this, I apologise now, because he didn't deserve what I said, but the other fucker did. My dad was sat talking to him, and because of where the cancer was, it was like creating, like, essentially, like, cancer ain't cute, we know that. And it's like, you wake up in the morning, you have morning breath. Well, cancer in your throat doesn't exactly create, you know, minty freshness. It creates death, is what it creates. Let's be fucking real. And my dad was a very, very proud man. He was very conscious of his appearance, and, you know, he were a bonny bloke. Not a bad looking bunch, the Naylers, if I'm honest. However, you know, he took a lot of pride in, like, his appearance, his smell, like, do you know what I mean? My dad used to come out of his bedroom before a night out and he'd be like, what's that? And he'd be like, it's a Louis Naylor special. And he'd have sprayed about 14 aftershaves and my mum's perfume and talked and deodorant. I'm like, fucking hell, Dad. It smelled like he just come out at a perfume shop on Boxing Day. But anyway, that was my dad. And when my dad was talking to this man, and it's still, I really apologise if I get emotional, because it's one of them things that every time I think about it, it rocks my course. I'm just going to say it real fast. The man backed away from my dad when he was speaking, and I watched my dad hang his head in shame, and I've never seen my dad do that in his entire life. And I've never seen my dad make anyone feel that way or anyone make him feel that way. And that is someone that I had the most respect for. And I believe that everyone, like, should have respected him that much. Sorry, guys. I believe that he deserved the utmost respect, not just because he was dying, or because he had cancer, but because he were my fucking dad. That's why he deserved respect. And he's a fucking human. Every human deserves respect. He'd come to you for help. And I swear to God, if I could find that doctor, I would play this to him and then I would murder him with my bare hands. Fact. Still now to this day. Soz. And he basically just spoke to my dad like a piece of shit. And albeit right then I probably came across a little bit aggressive, I've been subject to abuse over the phone from people at work, and, you know, I hate watching anyone in the workplace get grief. I did grab a tissue, by the way. Necessary! Me thinking I can handle anything. Also me talking about me dad. Anyway. I'm really not one for abuse. Like, them posters that go up in the NHS, or like when you ring the doctors now, it's like, assistants won't deal with abuse. They don't deserve to be spoken to like that. And you know what? I agree. I also don't think there's any reason for them to have an attitude every time they pick up the fucking phone, but I digress. But I don't believe it. I don't believe in verbal abuse. However, this man made my dad feel this small, and my dad was the biggest person in my life next to my mum, and that weren't happening. The other thing that really annoyed me is that my mum is actually deaf. So I kind of watched this doctor manipulate a situation of a very unwell man who was ashamed of how he was coming across, and a woman who was hard of hearing, and I fucking lost it. I lost my absolute marbles. Every other word that came out of my mouth was derogatory, and I'd say it all again, and that's not like me. I just went mad. I was like, how dare you speak to and treat my dad, one of your patients, like this? I said, you're a fucking disgrace. You are the exact the thing I actually said to him that has always stuck with me. I said, you are the definition of a loser. I said, you were one of them weirdos in college and uni that had no friends, and you studied to become a doctor because you're clever, and all you want is the cream off the top. You want the money. You're not asked about your patients or their well-being. You couldn't give a shit. So shove it up your fucking ass along with your degree. And you, mate, and poor lad, I turned around to the trainee doctor, who I bet he was on doing a uni placement or something. I said, if you've got any fucking sense, you won't get into this profession either. And if you do, I hope you don't turn out like this fucking cretin. And I grabbed my mum and dad and I got up and I went, you will never see us again, you horrible little shit. I got up and grabbed my mum and dad and I walked out. And my mum and dad were like, no one had any words. My mum probably didn't hear half of what I said anyway, but my dad was like, I can't believe. And I was shaking. I was trembling. I was rocked that had even left my mouth and that I spoke to someone like that. But for the whole situation, there was just too much going on mentally coming out of my mouth that I couldn't put back in. Soz. It were horrible. And I was distraught. I was just gone. I remember ringing my boss and saying, I'm not coming in. I ain't coming back to work. My dad actually did get to see my brother's wedding as well, which was really emotional but nice. I'll talk to you a little bit more about it later on as well when I'm talking about the feeling of resentment. But my dad did manage to make it to my brother's wedding, and it was really hard for people to see, to be honest. I mean, we were all used to it because I feel like when you watch someone every day, you don't notice it. But for the people who hadn't seen my dad at all, they couldn't believe it. I'm looking at my brother's friends who'd been raised by my mum and dad, were looking at someone who they used to think was like dad number 2 hero, like, oh my God, Louis dying. It's like, yeah, he is. Should have come and visited. And that's kind of how it was. And it was a really hard day. Like I said, my dad was emotional. My dad is a crier. We all were. So, it's hard you want to enjoy it and be present and be part of the day and have the best day. And it was, what a wedding, man. Honestly, we still talk about it now. It was one of the best days of our lives. But it was still really hard because, every day we were just grateful that my dad woke up. Or for most cases, he didn't fucking go to sleep anyway because he was too scared to go to sleep in case he didn't wake up. So we were grateful he was awake. And yeah, it was not nice. It was not this peaceful lie in bed and, go quietly. It didn't go like that. So my brother got married on the 7th of September. And then from then it was another 12 days after. On the 19th of September, it was about 10 to 2 in the morning. I remember dead vividly. It was funny, actually. Funny might not be the word. My mum woke me up and told me that my dad weren't going to make it. And I remember my bedroom used to be like a little granny flat in the garden in this new house. It was really cool. And I remember her just flinging the door open and she had the dog in her arms and she was like, Emily, you need to get up. And for some reason, I'd gone to sleep in my dressing gown. Really would never do that. I'm a sweaty girl. But I literally just sat up like the Undertaker. How fitting. And I just jumped out of bed and I knew straight away what was happening. And I went, straight into the house. And yeah, the situation was going down. I did actually get my own night with my dad the night before he passed, really. So like I said, I didn't really show a lot of emotion to him, or I tried to avoid displaying how upset I was about the situation to him because we both knew what it would do to us. And I remember I was constantly researching and reading things and trying to find things. When you see the things like cancer's a myth and weed can solve it and this germ, this nut, this brand of olive oil can cure you. I was literally buying and hunting for everything. And they told us that if my dad was of a particular weight and nutrition level, then they would give him this type of therapy to ease him. So I was like, you just need to eat, you just need to this. And he was like, Emily, I'm in so much pain. He was like, just stop. And I was like, okay. And I couldn't comprehend that what was going to happen was going to happen. So I'd be talking to him like this and there would be tears running down my face and he'd be like, just stop it. And I'd be like, no, because you're going to be fine. You're going to be right. You're still going to walk me down the aisle. You're still going to do all these things. And he was like, relax, brother. But we did get, again, it's like we knew, but we didn't. The night before he passed, so only a few days before he passed, he got a hospital bed at home. And we lived in like a bungalow. It had a couple of stairs, but it was a bungalow essentially. And we set the hospital bed up in my mum and dad's room. So it was hospital bed, mum and dad's bed. And then I was in the garden and my brother was in the room next door. And he was in his bed and I came home from work and I literally just spent all night with him. And we had loads of different conversations, and for the duration of his illness, God no, for the duration of his illness, I didn't feel like a child anymore. And not in a way that I felt like his carer. I just didn't want him to feel like he needed to parent me in the way that he did. I didn't want him to feel like he needed to pick the pieces up of me every day. Not that I came home breaking down every day, do you know what I mean? But like, I wanted him to feel like he could almost like be ill in peace, and not worry about anything. And my dad was literally, he was a big guy. He was a short guy, like I said, but big guy. And that night I remember just getting in the hospital bed. He was like, you should come and lie down with me. And I did. And we just cuddled all night. And it was in that moment that I got to feel like a child again. Fucking hell, fire. Why did I agree to this? Yeah, we had a bond like no other, and we told each other everything, like literally everything. And that night when we were laid in bed together, like I said, my dad was scared to fall asleep towards the end, so he would, because he was so tired, he was very delirious, so he would fall in and out of sleep all the time. He'd be talking to you and then he'd doze off and then he'd wake himself up and be like and then he'd carry on and then he'd go, and and again, that's so fucking sad to see, because he was knackered. The man needed a kip, but he was scared. And he literally said to the doctor before he died, I'm scared I'm just going to have a heart attack or suffocate because, or I'm going to pass out because I'm so tired and just die. And that was the fear that was running through his head, because my dad loved life. He was here for living. From the minute he could walk right up until the end, my dad were doing stuff day in, day out. That was him. So to have that taken away from him, it were alien. And he just didn't want it to happen. So, and I remember us being led in bed that night, and he was like, he kept telling me things to tell people, and he was like rhyming things off. He was like, and he was like, oh, I love your Auntie Jan, which was his sister, my Auntie Jan, and he'd tell me something, and then he'd wake up and go, will you make sure that such a body gets this? And he was going through all these things, and I was like, yeah, and in my head I'm like writing it all down. And then like my Uncle Andy, my dad's brother, who was like his best mate, rang me, and we were chatting, and he was like, oh, just getting like, see for an update, how is he, da-da-da, and I was like, yeah, we're all right. And my dad woke up and he went, who were that? And I went, oh, it was our Andy. And he was like, I love our Andy. I know he's my brother, but he's my best friend. Like, make sure you tell him that. And it were all these things that he were like, I felt like he was leaving me with. He was leaving me with jobs. And in my head, he wasn't going, but he must have known, because my dad wouldn't have said all them things to me because he didn't want to even believe it himself. Like, the things he said to me about me and my mum, and the way all of us as a family had stepped up and cared for him, and how I was his princess and blah, blah, you know, we got all that and we did all that. And I must have led with him for 4-5 hours. And my dad, right, like I said, big lad, he had massive, big old sausage fingers, right, huge. And every time they held my hand, it was like they were suffocating him. And for how much weight he lost, he never lost his big fat hands, basically. So I still remember us just being like that. And I was looking at him, I'm like, I could pick you up right now and probably bench press you. And I weigh jack shit. But your hands, like, his hands never changed, and I loved that. But yeah, so we, and that night when my mum got home, it was dead funny. My dad was talking to my mum, and they were both, and they started bickering about something daft, because my dad basically kept getting up in the night and going walkabout, but he was very frail and unwell, so my dad going walkabout was quite a serious topic at that time. Equally, because my mum's hard of hearing, she'd like turn the TV on full volume, start a conversation with my dad, and then not hear his response. So it honestly, it was like having two kids, and I remember they were both talking and like, what? Turned the telly off, I was like, right, tied dressing gown. I was like, you two, shut up. And I remember like having like a moment with them both, and I was like, right, I'm going to bed because I'm knackered. And it was about, I know, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, I'm going to bed, I love you, I'll see you in the morning, night night. And I kissed them both, and the last words I said to my dad were, I love you, night. The great thing about this is that I can stop and start whenever I want. Yeah, so I'm dead lucky that was my last thing with him. And my brother worked dodgy hours. I said dodgy hours. He worked American hours at that time. And he came home that night and had a conversation with my dad as well. And that was a really nice, wholesome conversation. And he finished it with like, right, just go to bed. I'll see you in the morning. And so we all kind of had that. Do you know what I mean? And then, yeah, I mean, walk up a few hours later, come in the house and the paramedics are in. And it was really traumatic. Basically, the cancer was growing over his throat, and it essentially just stopped breathing and had a heart attack and died. And it was really surreal. Like, you don't expect to watch someone giving someone you love CPR. You just don't. And we sat there for like 3 or 4 hours after it happened, and we're all sat in the living room, and I was like, anyone want a brew? Like, we were the only 3 people in the world that knew my dad was no longer with us, and we all just sat there having a brew. Like, what the fuck? These are the weird things that happen when someone dies. You carry on breathing and existing even though every part of you wants to also be dead too. It's so weird. We had a right nightmare as well. My other brother, God love him, as it had just been his wedding, he's in Vegas on his honeymoon and he wasn't coming back until that day. So we had to tell him over the phone. Who the fuck wants to be told that over the phone about the dad? So that wasn't ideal. But obviously we needed him to know before anyone else knew. And it was just so weird. We kind of sat there and it's like, obviously I didn't go back and see my dad after he'd passed, but I'm like, we're all sat in my living room waiting for Daybreak to come on, or Good Morning Britain, and there's a copper in the back identifying my dad. I'm like, I can identify him for you, mate. That's my dad. I only have one, but apparently you need that. And we're all here drinking a cup of tea. Like, what the fuck is going on? Just, the only words that describe it are not real. Not even surreal. I feel like surreal is a positive emotion. It was not real. What I was experiencing didn't feel real. That's hopefully all the severe trauma over. Sorry, I've got very, TMI on this, but this is why I explained this is the reality of people dying and death and grief and the beginning of it all. People think grief starts after someone dies, but that's just not the case at all. When I was told this on the 4th of March, that my dad had cancer, I started the grieving process then without even realising, and I didn't even show it or notice it within myself, but I did, and so did my mum, and so did probably other people as well, because it's just really strange. Someone dropping dead is like something that you don't anticipate, but watching someone suffer with an illness and their life being in someone else's hands completely, you never know which way it's going to turn. I think that'll be all the crying done. The days and weeks that followed were a madness, as you can imagine. It was a proper blur. We were just swarmed with people, flowers, messages, all that stuff. Me and my brothers felt it was right to put something on Facebook because my dad was quite into Facebook at the time. It's a very mum and dad piece of kit, isn't it? And he had lots of friends on there. So we all put something on. And it was really overwhelming. I've never in my life seen such an outpour of love for one individual. It was just really overwhelming. It was like nothing short of what I expected, but at the same time it exceeded every expectation that I had. His funeral, blinking heck. The creme we held the service in, it were at Charnock Richard and it holds 180 people and we had over 350 there. I bet I don't even know 350 people. And people were overflowed into the car park. They were listening on the speakers. It was mental. I remember pulling up to the drive in my car because we didn't get a funeral car. We got my dad in his coffin thing. Got my nan in the box. And stop, Emily. Sorry. My dad came in the car. And we all just followed in our cars. I was like, it's down road. I'm not asked about us all being in some posh limo. Like, it'll cost about $5,000. I don't care. Just jump in the Cadillac and put some miles on it. Anyway, I get there and me, princess of the bloody family of the tribe, had to park at the bottom of the drive because there weren't that many people there. And that drive is long. Good mile and a half. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not good with distances. It's a big drive. And I remember as soon as I pulled up and got out of the car, I just cried because I was like, there are so many people here. And then you walked up the hill. Bless my old boss at the time, who I now work with again, he'd come all the way from like Huddersfield, and we didn't even work together anymore. And there were just so many unexpected people, like you won't believe. When it came to like the service and the speeches, I really wanted to speak. I don't know if it's because I like talking, as we all know, or I'm, just used to doing presentations and things like that. But I really felt, and I still stand by, that if anyone should have been speaking about my dad, it should be me. And so I did, and it was really bloody hard. And if I find a copy of the speech, I might post it, but I probably don't think I have one, and it might be a bit too close to the bone. Yeah, I did it, and I boxed it off, and it was really hard. It was hard seeing my nan, in particular, my dad's mum. She was holding the coffin. Not holding it, not carrying it like a pallbearer. Christ, she about 5 stone wet through. But she was like hugging it at the end. Because obviously, like when you pour out of the creme, we left. And then I had to come back in. And I remember coming back in and seeing my nan, my nan and my Uncle Andy, my dad's brother, they were just sobbing. And I was looking at it and I was like, your parents don't foresee your kids going before them. And it was just a really like pivotal moment. It was really weird. And then we went back to the RMI in Norwich, very fitting. That's where we held my dad's 40th surprise birthday back in the day. Went in a room that holds 400 people and you couldn't get a gnat's arse in it. It was that packed. I said earlier as well that my dad were in the music industry, and he put a lot of now successful people in entertainment onto the careers. He was in his first band at the age of 15. They were called Rustler. I'll find a picture of it because he was a cool motherfucker. He were in all the papers. He toured all around the country. My dad was the drummer for Jane McDonald in her band. I'll put a picture of that in as well. Jane McDonald, who Charlie Marlowe loves. It's me, Charlie Marlowe. Hello, girlies. Love her, by the way. She is someone I am in love with. Well, Jane McDonald, my dad drummed for her. So, Charlie, if you ever get to see this, love. Yeah, and he was dead into music. So, my dad's funeral was essentially a little bit of a concert. We had everyone who could sing. We must have had about 20 people get up and sing my dad's favourite song that they would perform. So we had everything from Diamonds Are Forever to All Night Long by Lionel Richie. To my Uncle Trev singing Bat Out of Hell with his shirt unbuttoned. So for bear in mind I'd only been with my fella for a year at this point. His family came and they were like, right, okay. All our friends were there like, is this normal? Is this appropriate? I was like, yeah. And everyone just got absolutely cheeky vimped or drunk. And for a funeral and a wake, it was really good. Is that the right word? I don't know. It was. So many people in one room celebrating that man. And we had this big slideshow of him going, and we didn't tell anyone, but we put a clip of my dad singing up, and everyone shares it every year. I'll post on my Instagram so you can see it. It's not he definitely sang better before because he was being recorded in a house on a really shit. Remember when the webcams used to be on top of the computers and they were dead shit? They were white with a little blue disc. That's what he was getting recorded on. But he was some boy, let me tell you. So yeah, and that was his funeral. Great do. Now, following that, we had my dad's birthday, my 21st, my mum's birthday, Christmas, as well as all my best friends' birthdays at the time. They were all turning 21, so we was wildly distracted with a lot of social events. And not just that, everyone going above and beyond for these social events to try and fill the void that we had. So I didn't just turn 21. Oh no, in true Emily Naylor style. This is probably where my fixation with dragging my birthday out began. So, cheers, Dad. I planned a night out in Leeds. That was my plan. I hosted an afternoon tea with 40 women at my mum's house. She was not impressed. Every time another car pulled up, she was like, where are they going to fit? It was a crammed occasion. It was great though. And mainly because I felt really strongly. All the women in my life really stepped up for me, and they did the most. And everyone brought a balloon and we let them off for my dad. It was very nice. And then they threw a surprise party for me. My dad had actually planned it with my mum. And they gave me my drumstick necklace, which is my dad's. So it's a bit twisted. This was the only thing. I asked for this back when I was like 10. I remember my mum and dad telling me they were writing the will when I was younger. And I was like, I don't want anything. I want my mum's wedding ring. I want my dad's drumstick necklace. That's all I'm interested in. My mum actually had this made for my dad. There used to be a little drum on the end of it, but he lost it. She had this made for his 40th by a jeweller. And we went and got like copies made for like my brothers and my mum and blah, blah, blah. So, but I've got the OG. There's a funny story about that actually. My mum planned to give it me on my 21st birthday, and when we moved house, she lost it. So she had a replica made, and I didn't realise. When I got it on my 21st birthday and I saw it, I just cried. I was overcome. My brothers did me a speech and I was like, ah! And then I got on the microphone and just spoke waffle for 20 seconds before I just got off and got another shot. But I thought I had the OG necklace and I didn't. And she found it in the pandemic when we were cleaning the loft, and she was like, please don't hate me. And I was like, why? And then she got this out and I was like, how did I not notice that what you gave me was not the real one? But I didn't. Anyway, now I have got the real one, so... yeah, but I'm really happy. So yeah, but like I said, everyone was just going above and beyond, doing the absolute most because of what had happened, you know, which people just do. And it's so nice and it's so lovely. And for them few months, like, it really didn't sink in at all. And then January hit, woo! And it had been 4 months since he died. And all the festivities have died down. And all of a sudden, people aren't checking in on you daily. They're not asking if you're okay in that tone of voice, because what they really mean is, are you okay existing when your dad died and you're in work, you know, only 4 weeks after the occasion, trying to sell fire protection? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, January hit me like an absolute steam train going 100 mile an hour, and I was stood still. I just completely brick walled to the point I was like, again, physically kicking and screaming on the floor of my living room, because I couldn't process that life was going on around me and I was sat with all this grief and all these emotions that I hadn't felt before, and everything else was just going on and carrying on and ticking. I was like, why? You know, it was just so weird. And then we went into the bloody pandemic. Does anyone want to spend 3 months at home with a bucket full of grief and no human interaction? Not really, Jeff. It absolutely crippled me. And, you know, it affected so many of my relationships. The whole dynamic of my relationship with my partner changed. I became so dependent, which is really not my style. I was looking at my fella who was only 20, barely turning 21 at the time, God love him, to fill this void and love that my dad had for me, that no one could have actually filled. Even if they cloned him, it just wouldn't have worked. I was looking at my mum to be my mum and my dad, completely ignoring the fact that she was grieving the loss of her husband and her best friend. I'm looking at my brothers to step up to a role. I'm looking at everyone around me to fill a void that is impossible to fill. And I was at an absolute loss. I completely threw myself into work. I only had 3 weeks off before I went back. And I went back because I was spiralling at home. There was only so many times I could go to the Range and Home Bargains and Matalan and B&M. We was buying tat for tat's sake. We was like, right, we need to leave this house. And upon reflection, it probably wasn't enough time off to process my emotions. However, for me, work was the only place that hadn't changed in the way that everywhere else had. Work wasn't somewhere that my dad was. You know, I didn't work with him. Who thinks about the mum and dad at work, really? Do you know what I mean? He was in my head, but I didn't take him with me. I could go to work and just throw myself into an utter distraction for the next 8 hours. Losing my dad, it made me feel empty in just every way possible. He was very complimentary, very affectionate. He was literally my biggest fan. It was like having a personal hype man following me around all the time, on top of being a supporter, financial advisor, bailer outer, mechanic, jack of all trades. He could build me a house, change the oil in my car, take the nicest picture of me, post it, and then comment on it and tell everyone how much I was his princess, you know. I had it all with my dad, and it just all got ripped away. And it made me question, you know, my own self, my own love languages. What do I need from someone? Am I meant to exist without my dad? Without being an absolute sap? I did just want to die then and there. Like, I just didn't want to be here at all, because it was easier to consider not being here and being in a blackout than having to exist with all these feelings and being lost and having to navigate my life without my dad for the next 75, 80, 90, 100 years. Where are we now? Well, let's get on to a lighter note, shall we? Well, I'm still here, evidently. I didn't kill myself, thankfully. We live to fight another day. It's been just over 4 years since it happened, and I've changed a lot in this space of time. Obviously, main one, I've grown up a little bit more. I felt like I was mature for my age at the time anyway, but I'm now 25. I feel more mature, for want of a better phrase. I feel a little bit more in control of my emotions, sort of. I don't mean I don't get upset. I get upset all the time, like I said. A random Tuesday crying at the top of your stairs. This girl. And you do not get past it. You do not learn to live with it. You just, them things that people say, oh, grief does get easier with time. No, it fucking doesn't. You actually just don't have a choice other than to carry on. That's the reality of it. Unless you top yourself like I wanted to, which I considered, I still didn't do it, and thank God I didn't. You have to keep going. And that's the ugly part of it, and that's the harder part of it. Dealing with grief on a day-to-day basis, it's the ugliest part of navigating your life that I've ever encountered, because on the days you feel happy, you feel guilty. On the days you feel sad, you feel super sad and like a bit of a bore. I don't have any specific day or moment that I became happier. That bit did gradually come over time, and my good days began to outweigh my bad. They went from being days to weeks and so on. And one thing my mum would especially say to me often, your dad would hate to see you like this. And whilst it were true, he would hate to see me like that. It's not what you want to hear at the time, is it? That's the truth. When I cried, my dad did. He felt all my emotions, and I know that him watching me punish myself for the rest of my life would have killed him, and it ultimately wasn't doing me any good. It was making me very unwell. I needed to carry on living and enjoying life because I did love life. I absolutely did. I was taught and brought up that way, and I physically didn't want to keep being sad because it was so painful. My dad's he had a few different songs at his funeral, and his final song as we all walked out, which is very thin, it was The Show Must Go On by Queen, which I've still to this day not listened to in full, but the message and the meaning behind the words have reflected massively on in our lives. One of my brothers has got it tattooed on him. I'm getting the same, and it was one of my dad's favourite songs, and my dad's band, the last band that he had, with my uncle Trev and my auntie Shana, that was one of the songs that our Trevor sang, and he was amazing at it, by the way. Brought the house down. But yeah, it's a very hard song for me to listen to. And like I said, I've not managed to do it yet. I've not stomached it. Every time the credits come on for Bo Rap and it comes on, I'm like, bye, see ya. But yeah, there's never been truer words, put it that way. Let's talk about the common emotions that we have felt, the royal we, me, that we felt through the last 4 years. And these can come up for different people in different ways, I think, when it comes to grief. Guilt and regret. Have I felt that? Thankfully, no. Not a chance. Some people will do, because everyone's relationship with someone that they lose is different. But no, for me, really, I'm sorry if this comes across as selfish, but really, luckily, no. I spent every possible second I could with my dad, and I don't have any guilt or regret over him or time spent in our relationship. I had, the most traumatic but perfect last moments with him, and last night, and every other moment I've got with him is so special and dear. I don't quantify mine and my dad's relationship in that one experience where he was led in a hospital bed. I quantify it in the nights where he was stood in the Beehive pub in Horwich, dedicating My Girl to me and singing it top note with about 4 people watching. And, all the ways that he put me on a pedestal for the world to see. That's how I quantify my relationship. So I've no guilt or regret in that sense, which I feel really lucky about. Anger. Woo! Absolutely. Everything and everyone. My fuse was shortened by a country mile after this event. And patience. I had absolutely no patience or tolerance for people around me, especially the ones that were undergoing what I like to refer to as first world problems. I will never forget going into work. I went back into work, and it hadn't been that long. And again, this probably comes down to me not having enough time off to be at one with oneself. But I didn't want to be at one. All I wanted to do was have a chat with my dad. And one of the girls came in and she plonks down with a Louis Vuitton bag and she sat there and she didn't need to work, she just worked and she always fucking complained. But she came in and was like, it's really cold today and raining. I just hate this weather. Hate this weather so much. It makes me just not want to be here. Does it? Does it really? Why you go play chicken at middle at M6 then? No, I'm joking. But at the time I was like, you just don't say that to the girl whose dad has just died 4 weeks ago. Come on, love. Have a bit of concept. Have a bit of awareness of what's going on around you. So yeah, anger, absolutely. And I did project that, and that was wrong of me. I didn't project it to her in the moment. I actually bit my tongue, and I don't fucking know how. But yeah, another one, happiness, is not one that you would tend to link to grief. But sometimes I think this can be intertwined with guilt because you don't think you should be happy. And I think it's worse when you catch yourself being happy because, you know, everyone has happy points in every part of the day. Even if it's for a millisecond, they do. Nothing is 100% bad 100% of the time. In theory. There's exceptions to that, of course. I mean, in the average Joe Blogg's day-to-day life. But it's when you catch yourself enjoying something without that person there and you're like, shit, why am I okay? And that does just come over time. I went happy overnight. But yeah, sometimes that feeling does accompany grief. You're happy sometimes when you're reminiscing, when you're thinking about them, you're thinking about the times that you shared. It makes you feel happy because those times existed. Resentment. Oh, even saying the word resentment just makes you feel sassy. But yeah, I felt resentment very, very deeply in so many different ways. A lot of the time when I look at people who don't have relationships with the parents, dads specifically, but just the parents in general. Now, obviously, everyone has got their own reasons for that, and I fully respect that. Just because someone has a mum or dad doesn't mean they should be around that mum or dad, or that they're good, or that they're healthy. I fully get that. It's more the ones that are like, you know, just a bit shit. They're not an arsehole. They're not a murderer or, you know, causing problems, but they're just a bit of a wanker. Those are the ones that really boil my piss. Because I look at them situations and I'm like, why are you someone who causes so many problems in your children's life? Why are you here? And why is my person who brought nothing but light to everyone's life and he made such a positive impact on me, my family and the world, why is he gone and why are you here? And it sounds awful to look at it like that, but you do. That is how your mind works. You're like, why him and not you? Do you know what I mean? It also does my head in when I see kids. Now, don't get me wrong, kids will be kids. And when you're 13, 14, however, even, you know, younger, sometimes older, it ain't cool to hug your mum and dad, potentially. That never fazed me. I slept in my mum and dad's bed till I was 12, which is probably something I shouldn't shout from the rooftops, but I bloody loved it. I fucking get in with my mum now. Love it. Comfort is king. But when kids like reject or push away the mum and dad, now again, I'm aware that's a me problem and I'm like projecting my feeling onto that child, like, hug your mother and father, because I would hug mine if they were here. But fuck me, it doesn't half wind me up. I'm resentful for the things that I'm not going to have. Is probably my main one. My biggest one is, and it isn't because of the day, it's because of the meaning. I'm not going to get my dream wedding. I'm going to marry the love of my life. I'm going to have the best people there. I'm going to have the most amazing family. But ultimately, the thing that epitomises my wedding, and always had done since I was a little girl, was my dad seeing me in my dress, walking me down the aisle, all them things. And I won't get that. Now, I will caveat that with, at the wedding that I talked to you about earlier, my brother's wedding, I was really lucky. So my plan from being, I'd probably say maybe about 10. So when my mum first had me, I'm going to have a lot of tangents here. When my mum first had me, she went to a family party about 6 weeks later, and she's obviously emotional. Is it called postpartum? Is that what you are when you've had a baby? Whatever. I was 6 weeks out. My mum were emotional, obvs. I were probably a squawking little shit. My dad got up on karaoke at a family do and he sang My Girl for the first time by The Temptations, which was obviously dedicated to me and my mum. And my mum was a bag of tears, naturally. And it's always stuck. And it stuck with us. And funnily enough, the week after he died, I listened to Smooth Radio all the time. You know, the general, top 20 tracks that are going to get played. My Girl weren't one of them. And I remember when we were planning the funeral, I had like a bit of an outburst and had to get out of the house. And my mum took me up the road. We put Smooth Radio on and the song that came on was My Girl. And we both just she slammed the brakes on and we were like, go, no. Like, girl, what is happening? But yeah, and my idea was always that at my wedding, I would have a dance with my dad before I had my first dance, and it was always going to be to My Girl because that's just what it was going to be. And I obviously learned that weren't going to be the case, which is really fucking shit. And my sister-in-law, the first song that came on at the wedding was, but like after all the food and that, and everyone goes in and you think you're going for the first dance, so they cut the cake, and the intro to My Girl came on. Obviously, if you know, it's like do 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 do, bow now now now. Now every time I hear that intro now, it triggers me, kind of in a nice way, but it doesn't. Nevertheless, it brings tears to one's eyes. And it came on and me and my dad had our first dance. And we were just stood on the side of the dance floor like having our own moment, and my sister-in-law brought us onto the dance floor and we had this dance together, and that was like the closest thing that I was going to get to that moment. Yeah, and it was obviously it was very emotional. It was very, very hard, and in the video it's pretty trauma. Everyone is just crying. Like, everyone on the dance floor is crying, everyone around us. I'll find a video of us dancing together. Like, it's bittersweet is probably the description of it, because it wasn't what I wanted, but in that moment it's more than I could have ever asked for, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I'm just sad that I won't get that. And then obviously, who's going to get up and speak about me like my dad would? And then I'm ultimately going to put that pressure on someone else one day. And it's all them things that go through my head. But anyway, I'll worry about that one later. Anyway. If one of the other things that really gets me is that if I'm lucky enough one day to be able to have children, my dad won't get to be a part of that. Obviously, I'll do my best to keep him alive through them and teach them about him and all them things, but there's nothing I'd love more than my dad doing what he did for me when I was a baby for mine. And like, I have a little niece now and she's the best thing ever, and it kills me that my dad hasn't met her, because she looks like him. Bloody, my brother is an amazing dad, so it's like I just wish he could be part of this now and see it. I've made some new amazing friends that are now like best friends for life since he passed. Ellie, Emily, Pip. The list is endless. I'm sorry if you've not had a shout out there. Beth, Lizzie, it goes on. I started dance again since he passed. He'd have loved nothing more than being sat back front row. He probably wouldn't have come to another velodrome competition if I'd have had one of them. But he'd have been in his element. He'd have been at the front taking pictures of everything, shouting the loudest. It'd have just been all over it. And I've had huge milestones in my career and life that he's not physically been here for. And I know you'll all say, he's always with you. He's in your heart, he's above you, he's your spirit. Yeah, he is, but fuck me. I'd much rather have him sat on my couch tooting on his e-cig than what I would in this figment of imagination that I've convinced myself exists every time I get the smallest sign, every time a white feather appears, every time one of his songs comes on the radio, which does happen, by the way. I'm a big believer in signs, and my dad comes through to me in signs all the time, particularly in music and birds. And I think I said this in the last video, birds, not females. But yeah, I don't want to imagine him and talk to his presence. I want him in my presence. I want to have a conversation with him. I want him to embarrass me in a pub after 4 pints because he couldn't hack his beer. I want to see him with my niece and my brother's new girlfriend, and I want him and Finn's dad to be best friends in pub together, causing mischief. They're the things that I feel robbed of, and that's one of the hardest emotions I've learned to contend with, is feeling robbed. And then I also feel annoyed because I think if he had been here, I wouldn't have had any of the issues that I'd had for the last 4 years. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't have had any issues, but I'd have had different issues, you know. I wouldn't have had to watch my mum date, which has been horrendous. I wouldn't have had to try and go at things alone. I wouldn't have to worry if a car dealer had ripped me off because I'm a woman. I wouldn't have had to argue with my mum because he'd be there to rationalise and mediate. Do you know what I mean? Do you get me? On the flip side of things, whilst it probably feels like all I've done is kick off and cry and be emotional all this episode, I definitely do feel like I have more good days than bad days now. I do enjoy life. I love my life. You know, I go out, I get dolled up, I go to events, nights out. I do make sure I'm living my life to the fullest. And it's really funny. Someone once said, one of my dad's friends, everyone like wrote a lot of nice things about my dad when he passed. And you know what's mad? Every year on his birthday, at least 30 people write on his wall on Facebook. I don't get 30 people now and I'm alive. Like, do you know what I mean? I just think this is the type of impact he had on people. But someone once said about my dad that he burned the candle at both ends, but what a beautiful glow it was. But it was so true, and I feel like that's why I live my life now at 1,000,000 miles an hour, because you genuinely just don't know when it's your time. But I just think it's so important that you make the most of it, do everything that you can while you can, regardless of your age or your ability. Just do stuff, because no one sits in bed when they're dying going, shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have gone skiing, shouldn't have had that night out with my mates. No one fucking says that. They all talk about the things they wish they had done. So don't have that opportunity. And my dad, you know, he was by no means ready to go, but he lived the most colourful life from start to finish. He literally came home from primary school with a pigeon on his shoulder, age 6. The stories my nan used to tell me about my dad, I could write a book on him. He was hilarious, like, from being right young, right? And then he went and he set up his own golf gear brand called Jean-Louis with my Uncle Johnny. I'll find a picture of the logo. We all got a beanie from it once out the loft. You know, and he going around doing car boots like Del Boy. And then, you know, he started bands, he performed around the country, he even performed in Germany to the troops. He had the family he dreamed of with my mum and us kids. He literally had the life of a king. And I do also like hold in high regard that for 20 years I had the best dad to exist. You know, everyone thinks theirs is the best. Mine was. I know people who have shit parents, and they're the ones who would survive a train going at 100 mile an hour, as I said earlier. But, you know, I'm grateful that I got to see and experience what a good parent and a good husband looks like, because it set my own standards so high for what I want for myself, and, like I said, hopefully one day for my own children if I'm lucky enough. And, you know, I could have had a shit parent all my life, but I didn't. I had the best. So, and we do keep his memory ongoing, you know, that's a constant. He's everywhere, you know. I'm actually yet to put a single picture up in this house, like up on a wall or anything. But when I do, you best believe he'll be first face on that wall. But yeah, he is everywhere, you know, he is with me. We all look like him. I'm a spitting image of my dad. To be fair, I'm like a good hybrid of my mum and my dad. I'll put a picture up of the 5 of us and you'll be able to pick us out. You know, I wear his necklace. He's on every wall at my mum's house. We all have so many reminders of him dotted around everywhere. We constantly talk about him. Do you know what I mean? Like, we do. And I think that's a really important part of it, you know, and it's helped me navigate my grief more so as I've got older. Even put me in a position where I feel like I'm comfortable enough to talk about this to you guys, and there's potentially going to be people who have no idea who I am watching this or don't know a lot about me. It's a very vulnerable position I've put myself in. But I talk about my dad all the time now, way more than I used to, and I don't feel like a burden in doing so, and that's down to me having some bloody good people around me, and they've made me feel safe about it. And albeit grief is something that people dance around because they don't get it or they don't want to say the wrong thing, I'm yet to meet someone who doesn't want to talk about someone that they love who's no longer with us. So maybe ask people if they want to talk about those that they love who they've now lost. Which is very fitting because my dad's karaoke song was called The Love I Lost, and I've got it tattooed on my side, and that photo is definitely going in the photo dump this week, boys and girls. Nearly at the end, guys. We nearly made it. We're on the home stretch. I'm sorry for how long this episode's been. I'm probably traumatic and a bit jumping all over the place. I'm just getting onto the feedback now for this episode. I've had the most interaction on this one, so I definitely want to share it. I actually told my friends that I was going to do this episode. A few of my friends did ask me when I mentioned the podcast, they said, are you going to talk about your dad or your grief? And I said, absolutely. Like that is a topic I feel so strongly about, and I feel like I should cover it for myself and for other people. And I had a girls' night with the dance girls a couple of weeks ago. We had like a bring a board night. There was more food than you could shake a stick at. And I told one of my friends, and I say funnily enough, I keep saying the word funny, not sure if that's the right one, but anyway, her dad is also dead. So we're in the Dead Dad Club. High five, sister. Sorry. I do joke on this topic as it makes it easier to talk about. But I accept that's not everyone's method of choice. It's just mine. As I said, it's called Nailed It. Not everyone's nailing it. But one thing I will say is that when I joined dance, I danced with two other girls who lost their dads too in their early 20s, and we did bond over that, and that was also good because it made me realise that it's not just me suffering. And that goes back to what I said about going getting hobbies and going meeting new friends in new places who potentially you might be more similar to than what you think. But what she did say, and it really warmed my heart, she said, I cracked off my first dead dad joke at dance. I'll paint the scene. We was organising our first fundraiser, and we obviously dancing commercial, dancing in heels, dancing a little bit sexy. We was trying to arrange, how are we going to get people there? What are we going to sell it with? I was like, well, we'll put food on, we'll do a buffet. I'll be the comper. We'll have bingo, we'll do all these things. And we'll do a dance. Well, we're a dance school, let's do a dance. She went, well, does anyone's dad really want to watch their daughter prance around in bloody tight leggings and a pair of heels? And I didn't even think about it. I just went, well, mine won't because he's dead. Everyone's face, they were like, apart from these two, Hannah and Lauren, they were both like, touche. And she said that, obviously, I was like, no, guys, laugh. Like, I've set the tone, laughing. What she did say was that I helped her realise that she could navigate her grief through humour, which really made my heart smile. So yeah, I'm going to read you out a few of these. A lot of them are more like their experiences with grief, as well as some nice messages. One of the ones I got was about how one of the girls I know had been through something similar. And she said that it's like quite heightened around Christmas time, which I always find as well. She said she loves seeing families so happy and it's so nostalgic to do things at Christmas that she used to do with her dad. However, it makes her super sad at the same time. And it's finding that balance, which I agree with. And then we started voice noting about it as well. And again, sometimes, without being a morbid sod, it's just nice to know that there's other people who genuinely do share those feelings and emotions. And we again talked about the other father figures that we lent on. I really lent on my partner's dad because he reminded me so much of my own dad. And she had similar experiences, and we just talked quite a lot about that. I had another one about I feel like grief hits you the most at unexpected times. You could be sad about literally anything, and then it'll hit me like, and this girl used the excuse of, I need my nan, she'd help me, or my nana wouldn't do this to me. As soon as I'm sad, my nana comes to mind. And again, I had the exact same feelings with my dad. One of the other ones I got, which really made my heart smile, was making the big man proud every day. I'm not one for soppy shit, but you're brave for doing this. It would be nice to see how you're getting on, because I wouldn't bring it up in person because I wouldn't bring it up in person, but it is something I'm interested in. Here for you. Love you. You know who you are. And I said, I'd love for you both to have met, blah, blah, blah. And he said, by the sounds of things, you're a little girl version of him anyway, so I feel like I've already met him. One of the last ones was, did the loss make you lose part of your identity? I suffer the loss of myself in a way since becoming a mum. I find it really hard to grieve the person I used to be, which is making me struggle to find who I am today. How did you find yourself again? Or if it's still a work in progress, what are your top tips? Thanks for writing in with that. It's very vulnerable. Top tips for a woman who normally has advice. I haven't got many on this one. Throwing myself into work and a hobby did really benefit me. Albeit they could be classed as a distraction, it did also really help me discover my purpose in different ways. I know that you are really amazing at what you do, and you've made great sacrifices for your career. And you've got good hobbies lined up, so I would encourage you to carry on pushing through them. I would also maybe try and put yourself out there. I'm real, again, something like this. I dreamed of doing a podcast and now I'm doing it and it makes me really happy. If you've got something like that in your mind that's outside of your hobbies and your current work, I would definitely go for something like that. It's a massive work in progress, and I think the grief of the person I used to be. I was a baby. I was my dad's princess, and I still feel like I am that person, but he's just not here to remind me, and I'm on the job to remind myself. Maybe that's how you will be. You've got to remind yourself, if I was looking you in the face and I'd be like, you're still there, bitch. Been there, bitch. Still there, bitch. The person that you were before you had your baby is still in there. It's your job to dig her back up again, revitalise her in the best way that you know how, even better than what she existed before. Really hope that one helped. Unsure if I'm qualified to talk about anything relating to mums, but that would be my closest bit of advice. And the last question I got is, from your experience, what are the right and wrong things to say to someone experiencing grief? I don't think there's obviously certain things you just wouldn't say that I wouldn't need to spell out for you. I think the biggest one for me was being around people who, like you say, complained about the weather to the girl who'd lost her dad 4 weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? I think it's all about rationalising and thinking before you speak. I would also encourage anyone that has someone around them that's lost someone that they love to ask if they feel comfortable talking about them, and if they do, be a safe space for them to open up and listen, because that's really big. Like I said, a lot of people do dance around it. They've done that with me. I've watched it with others because they don't want to say the wrong thing. But sometimes that can leave the person that's suffering the grief feeling like they actually can't talk about that person full stop without getting upset, without feeling like they're triggering people around them, without feeling morbid, without feeling like a saddo. And when I talk about my dad, I don't feel any of them things. I feel so light and airy-fairy because that's just him. Do you know what I mean? So I would definitely say keep creating that safe space for people to open up to you. And just be there for them. Like I said, I don't think there's necessarily wrong things to say that you wouldn't already know not to say. And that is it, guys. Can't believe we made it. Thank you for definitely coming on that journey with me, because that's exactly what I feel like it was. I really appreciate if you've stuck it out and listened to the whole thing. I'm not going to apologise for getting emotional, because I knew I would do. And I think anyone with half a brain cell listening to this would also be aware of that before they tuned in. But no, I hope it's taught you all a thing or two maybe. I hope if anyone's going through a similar thing, they would feel like they could message me if they didn't feel like they could speak to anyone else. So the inbox is always open. I will never share something you don't want me to share. But girl has been there, done that, and got the grief t-shirt, so hit me up. That is it, guys. Tune in next week. We're going to be talking all about the benefits of having different friends for different reasons, and it'll be the last one before Crimbo. And it was at this moment that I lost all the storage in my phone, so I do apologise, guys, for the unprofessional ending. However, we are getting better slowly but surely. Please tune in next week. Please like, subscribe, share and follow, all of the above. And I can't wait to see you next week. Thanks, guys.